Start the webinar. Okay, we should be live now, and the recording is in progress. So we'll just give folks a few minutes to come into out of the waiting room and into the audience here.
For my panelists, when you're not speaking, probably mute, and that way we'll avoid some of the feedback as best we can.
All right. Good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us this evening for this discussion on beech leaf disease. For those of you I don't know, my name is Alexandra Vecchio. I am the Director of Parks and Open Space for the town of Brookline, and really excited by the interest that we have here this evening with the number of attendees to listen to this expert panel discussion on beech leaf disease. So this evening, we're going to go through a discussion with the panelists and do some presentations from each of them. And then we will open it up to questions from the audience at the end. So feel free to, if you'd like to type something in the chat, feel free to do that. And we're happy to address it as we move along, or you can hold your question until the end, and we will take them in the order of hands raised. So with that, I will turn it over to Tom Brady, who is our Urban Forestry Manager and Tree Warden here for the town of Brookline, to introduce our esteemed panelists. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Alexandra. I appreciate it. Good evening to all. So it's good to have you all with us this evening. So a couple quick points, if I may, as we get started. One, we are fortunate, very fortunate to have these panelists, the members with us. Andy Bailon, Dr. Brantley, Dr. Dosman are leaders in their field, and we are grateful for their time here this evening. So as noted, this is recorded. Given the level of interest in this subject, I would anticipate that it will be reposted on the town website and available for folks after. As Alexandra noted, please either jot your questions down in the chat as we're proceeding, or feel free to hold them till the end. It will be 15 to 20 minutes per presentation, roughly. We have 3 folks who are going to speak. I am a certified arborist. I have 2 degrees in arboriculture and urban forestry. I've been in Brookline for 24 years. I speak across the Commonwealth, and occasionally I'm lucky enough to speak in other parts of the country on trees. So I love trees. I love what we do. So when people ask me, Tom, how you know if what you're doing is working, I tell them honestly, I come back with my grandkids. And if I walk the streets and we have good full canopies over my heads, then I know what we did today has served us well. So beech leaf disease is the new player in the neighborhood. Finding something new, starting from a point of little information, is something that is always happening in the arboriculture field and in urban forestry. So fortunately, we have folks who help us with this, and we communicate very well, and we collaborate, and we all try and work and find a good approach to the situation at hand. So with that, I'm going to start tonight by introducing Andy Bailon, who is the regional manager for Bartlett Tree out of the Waltham office, and he's going to kick us off tonight with some information. Andy?
Thank you, Tom. Lucky enough, as Tom mentioned, to have 2 of our panelists. One is Dr. Brantley from the Bartlett Research Lab. She is all things beech leaf disease, from past to present to potentially future. So she's going to kick off the presentation with a brief overview of where we stand today. She happens to have actually visited the Longwood Mall maybe 2 weeks ago. So she's seen these trees up close and has experienced them in their wonder, as well as some of their ailments. So she'll expand upon that. Then we also have Michael Dosman from the Arnold Arboretum, the keeper of the trees. He's an excellent friend of mine, as well as partner in the tree care community, and really excited to have him here to give kind of the bird's eye view of overall managing collections as a whole, and what the Arnold does, probably not too dissimilar to what the town of Brookline does. So thank them very much for being here. And I'd love Dr. Brantley, please, to kick it off if she's ready to go.
I am. Andy and Tom, thank you so much. And can everyone see the screen? Are we well?
Yes, looks great.
Thumbs up.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Excited to be here, excited to represent Bartlett Tree Research Lab and to speak to you about something very near and dear to my heart, and that is the beech tree. And you are familiar with this tree, the genus Fagus, and it's a very important tree, not just from our landscape perspective, but certainly from a forest perspective. And there are actually only a handful of species of beech trees across the planet, and they've been in our fossil record for quite a while. They're fairly long-lived species. They reproduce in marvelous ways, not just from seed, but also from root sprouts. You've perhaps seen the suckers all through a forested setting. Just really a marvelous tree and of such ecological importance for wildlife species as well. And you too can eat the seeds, the nuts from our beech trees. And our Native American beech is very widely distributed, actually from Eastern Canada all the way down into the Gulf states. Exciting when you think about that type of range. We don't see that with too many species. So just a lot of cool things to think about with our native beech, and then focusing even more on the amazing European beech trees that you're familiar with on the mall. And there are different groups of European beech, different colors, different forms, just an amazing array of cultivars of European beech. Perhaps what draws most of us to this particular tree, the European beech, is just that diversity that we see in color, again, and in form. It gives us so much to look at and to be thankful for. And speaking of being thankful for things, really the only constant in life is change, and we are experiencing that change right now on our landscapes and in our forests with the introduction of this novel pathogen, beech leaf disease. And it's quite an interesting phenomenon. There is no other system like this in the world doing what it's doing to, especially to our native American beech trees. This is a nematode. It's a small worm, and it is confined within the beech tree in the buds and in the leaves. We don't find it in the roots. We don't find it in the trunk or in the stems or in the branches. It is limited just to these two locations within the tree, which really makes it a challenge from a management perspective because we have nothing else in woody plants that functions in this manner. So lots of press, particularly over the past few years, as this pathogen has started to make its way across more and more of our eastern states. And I'll show you a map in just a moment. And this is a nematode, so it's a little worm. Perhaps you're familiar with worms. Maybe you had them as a child, or your child had them, or you had a dog or a cat that you perhaps rescued from a shelter with a distended belly, and you're familiar with these types of unsegmented roundworms called nematodes. And this one, in fact, was just described quite recently. In fact, this was a paper that was published in 2020. So we're looking really at just 4 years worth of causal agent information of why these symptoms are appearing and what creature is actually doing the damage to these leaves. And what we know is, again, this nematode is confined to the leaves and the buds. And right now, inside beech leaves that are impacted or infested with these nematodes, we find the blue squiggly things in the image on the right side of your screen. Every single one of those blue pieces of spaghetti is a nematode. And this is rather disgusting when you think about it. There's a healthy leaf on the left side with very well organized structures within the leaf. And, leaves are so important. They're the food factories of the trees. But here in one of these beech leaf disease symptomatic leaves, you see this incredible disarray of structures and up to 10,000 nematodes within a single leaf, which is rather horrifying when you start to think about it. So this is the reality that we face with beech leaf disease. And I remember back in 2012 when it was first reported just south of Lake Erie in Ohio. I remember thinking, oh, whatever, a little worm in the leaves of beech trees. No big deal. No one really cared. This was happening in the forest. Beech is not a commercially important forest tree. There are some uses, but it's not like an oak or like a pine with a lot of really important uses from a commodity perspective. But what happened over the years, and especially as you look at the pink and the red counties that are highlighted on this map, and this is just current as of the end of last year, it has gone exponentially even further since that time, and this is just the most recent map that I had. It spread, and in a way, it spread a bit like wildfire, and nobody really paid attention to it until about 4 years ago. So the question remains, how is it getting from point A to point B? And we know that in that area of Ohio, there are several large nurseries that were growing European beech and areas that were surrounded by American beech trees. And American beech really tend to suffer quite a bit more than the European beech do. But these European beech from nurseries were being relocated to other states. And this was one way that beech leaf disease was moving across the country, sort of long distance spread. And there are other ways that it's been moving. The DNA of the nematodes has been detected on wings of birds. We know that the nematode can pass through the gut of certain caterpillars and be alive. We know that they move when they can travel just by accident if a deer brushes up against a beech tree and can move it to another beech tree. So lots and lots of movement happening. Again, these are little worms, and they really do remain confined to the leaf and the bud. That's really important for us to think about as we move forward into this discussion now of management. Again, novel. Nobody knew what to do. It's very closely related to the same genus and species in Japan, but there it doesn't kill trees. And here in America, it does kill our American beech. Large trees can die within 8 to 10 years. Young trees can die very quickly, 1 to 3 years, in fact. But as a representative of the Bartlett Tree Research Lab, I have the honor and privilege to work with colleagues who have just incredible minds, and we started forward on this path of trying to figure out how to kill these nematodes. So you'll see some icons populate here. We had research sites and still do in Ohio, in Connecticut, some in New York, and additional properties and clients that joined in our efforts for research trials. These are just different years that are showing with some more research results. The little blue squiggly icons there are nematode research trials where we used some injections that I'll talk about in just a moment. So the leaves here represent research trial sites where we were looking at foliar applications to try to kill the nematodes, and the squiggly worm-like structures are trial sites where we were injecting trees with a product with nematicidal properties to kill the nematodes. Well, how do we do this? You got to start somewhere, and everything really starts with just sort of throwing a dart and seeing where it sticks. Knowing again that the nematode is confined to the leaves and the buds, we've got to kill them somewhere in the process of either migrating from the leaves, which happens in late summer, early autumn, as they wriggle out of the leaves and head towards the preformed buds. The buds are formed, they're starting to be formed right now, in fact, in July. And the buds serve as this amazing hotel for the winter months where the nematodes can go wriggle their way into a bud and hang out in these really tightly protected structures and enjoy their winter months feeding intently on the little bitty leaves inside. And when leaves emerge in the springtime, they are actually showing you symptoms. And that's that interveinal striping, or I like to call them zebra stripes, the bands in between the veins on the leaves. That's the damage that was done over the winter months inside the buds. So again, what we did, what the researchers at Bartlett Tree Research Lab did, is actually discovered a treatment that worked to kill the nematodes. And again, when we think about science and the way that we um, have to present our information to the public, information has to be vetted by other scientists before it can get published in a scientific journal. And this was a wonderful opportunity for us to share with the general public. Yes, we do these research trials. Yes, it does work. And many of the people on this author list, including myself, are Bartlett employees. So just a little bit of exciting information. This was an article that was published that documents the treatments that we came up with as scientists to control beech leaf disease. And as a result of the research trials, the important thing is we received the legal opportunity to control beech leaf disease on beech trees with this product. And this is a really big deal. You know, these are chemical companies that we're working with. Everything has to be vetted. You have to have it goes through EPA. There are lots and lots of hurdles to go through, but thankfully, everyone came to the table and everyone played well, or I should say, cooperated well, and we were able to get through some legislation and get this particular product, fluopyram, approved for use in states with beech leaf disease. So this was a really, really big deal because you've got to be able to have a product that's labeled to use. So what happens is we had a rate, it worked in our trials, but we thought, oh, let's take a look. Maybe we could reduce the rate and perhaps we could still get some response and some control of the nematodes. And this is really exciting for me. You'll see 6 fluid ounce rate, a 4 fluid ounce rate, 2 fluid ounce rate, and a 1 fluid ounce rate. And those are the trees in this image that have a lot of leaves. You'll see a lot of dark leaves, and then the trees in between them that are missing leaves, those were trees that were not treated, that are full of nematodes. So we know we have a product here that works and works well. And that is a foliar application of an active ingredient called fluopyram, and the trade name of that product is called Broadform. It takes a series of sprays. It's not just a one and done. The idea was trying to coincide or coordinate that with the movement, the migration of the nematodes from the leaves to the buds. What we found is that we actually don't have to target that timing, and we're able to actually shift the application a little bit earlier as to right about now into the summer months. It's not just Bartlett that's working on this, it's researchers all across the eastern United States and internationally looking at ways to control this. So I say we do this, and we do this in conjunction with other people who have research trials as well. But for me, the proof is in the pudding. When you look at a tree that was not treated, and that's the tree on the left, and you see some banding or some what looks like thick tissue in between the veins of the leaves, if you compare that to a treated tree on the right, where you see no symptoms of beech leaf disease, this is evaluation, and this shows us that the treatment works. It's not only a visual observation, it's also counting the number of nematodes in the leaves and in the buds. And that is a thankless job unless you really like to count little worms. The next and greatest thing is for the trees that we are not able to spray, either because of their size, the location, their proximity to water, we needed another option for management, and that option has presented itself, thankfully, to us in the form of an injectable product. And I like the term chemotherapy for this. This is something where we now have 2 years worth of data on, and super excited about using this particular product, this injectable. The active ingredient is called thiabendazole, and the trade name is Arbortect. And once again, we had to have science to back our recommendations, and we have it. You can look, this is a graph that shows the number of nematodes present in bud tissue. The Arbortect, there were very, very few, and in the untreated controls, there were many. So lots of nematodes present in buds that were untreated versus trees that were treated with this injectable product, again, called Arbortect. And here in this graph, you see looking at the percent canopy, so the amount of the crown, the tree, the leaves that had BLD symptoms, comparing the year before the treatment took place, and those are the solid columns, the dark gray columns, with the percent canopy with symptoms after treatment 1 year later, and that's the diagonal gray lines. So you can see the comparison of the Arbortect, the treated versus the untreated controls. And again, prior to treatment, the trees were symptomatic. A year following treatment, the trees were in very, very good condition. This is, again, just a very good example. This is a research trial that I'm involved with personally in New Jersey, and this was looking at what happens if we make this injection a little bit later in the season. It still works. What we do know, this particular product has been approved for giving us 2 years worth of efficacy, which is really super exciting. Injecting beech trees is a little bit of a challenge. They're fairly thin barked, but they do uptake the product quite well if they are healthy trees. And this is just showing you the full trees side by side on this particular client's property where we did this trial, this particular treatment. And I think of greatest excitement to me is, again, working with the industry, and everyone wants to save beech trees. So we have what is called a special local need label right now. It needs to go a little bit further to get fully vetted. And again, it's just one step at a time, getting it through the state legislation, the state qualifying people, the pesticide regulatory agencies and people. And you'll see it's not available yet in every state. So we continue to work on this. It's an exciting opportunity, I think, for helping to keep trees alive in appropriate settings. These are not treatments that can be used in forested settings. At this time, we have nothing that we can recommend. We're just going to see that change is occurring. But on landscape settings, we have these opportunities now to administer foliar applications of products that will kill the nematodes, or inject products that will kill the nematodes directly into the root flare at the very base of the tree. But it's not every tree that is a candidate. And I would like to stress that I am a plant pathologist and a forester by training. And for me, it's very important to be sure that the candidate, the beech tree, is a good candidate. So these are things that Andy Balon and I and Tom Brady and others look at every day. You know, what else is happening to the tree besides the beech leaf disease? Is the base of the tree buried? Did someone come in and put fill dirt over it at some time, fill soil? What's happening? So I'm looking for buried root collars. These are what I would consider to be red flags or real concerns that I have if I'm asked whether or not I should treat a beech tree for beech leaf disease. Many of the trees that we encounter, the large trees, are old. They're old. They haven't had easy lives. We see this with the symptom called decline, where you see branches that are dying in the crown of the tree. And this indicates that there are other problems. It may not be just beech leaf disease. There may be something going on below ground or perhaps in the vascular system of the tree. And we may see that the placement of the tree where it's located is not appropriate. It's not going to get any better. Perhaps if it's in a parking lot or at the edge of a road, in terms of compacted soil that's restricting both oxygen and perhaps water availability to the roots of our important trees. And just thinking about how we're managing our landscapes and our trees, providing a mulch blanket or providing a mulch volcano. So there are lots of things that are going on landscapes that we may or may not have control over, that may or may not be contributing to the health of the trees. But there are also a lot of other pathogens and pests that really enjoy beech trees. And these are 4 that are of great concern to us: bleeding canker, beech bark disease, beech bark scale, and one that unfortunately is sort of the final deciding factor for me as a plant pathologist is a fungus called brittle cinder, also known as Kretschmeria. It's a wood decay organism, and unfortunately, the top of the tree may look absolutely beautiful, but when we see these certain fungal fruiting bodies at the base of the tree or on the trunk of the tree, we know that there is typically extensive decay, and that tree should be recommended for removal. Walking through with Andy Balon, I took these pictures 2 weeks ago of beech trees, other things that I saw. I noted the northern tooth fungus, another wood decay organism, hypoxylon canker, that's the black structures on what looks like kind of like an elephant foot on the tree in the middle, and then Nectria canker, some fungal fruiting bodies on a dead branch. So much is going on with trees on our landscapes, especially the old beech trees. And I'd like just for everyone to be aware of making some really practical and informed decisions when you're thinking about managing for beech leaf disease. And it may just come down to this, do you treat or do you not? Are there other problems? How do you make this decision? I highly recommend that you work with people who are invested in the knowledge and in the science and know what to look for. So I'm looking for qualified people to help you make decisions. I know that these people will take a look at the tree and be honest with you about the health of the tree, what's happening, long-term prognosis, and if there are other problems that overshadow the beech leaf disease significance, if it's not in good condition, then it's not likely to be a good candidate for beech leaf disease treatments. So we do have to be mindful that there is an end to everything that's living, and we must make our decisions using some appropriate knowledge and science. And with that, I would like for you to think about these beech trees. I would like for you to think about how they're cared for, not just in this particular setting, but as you walk about and see other beech trees. Are they being taken care of? Are they candidates for beech leaf disease treatments? Look to the science. This is an acknowledgement page for all of the people that have been part of this research effort, and this has really been a colossal effort. The two gentlemen, the pictures, Dr. Andrew Lloyd and Dr. Matt Borden, are my colleagues at the Bartlett Tree Research Lab, and we've just been really so fortunate to have so much support, not just from the industry, but from Robert Bartlett and from colleagues as well across universities, across government agencies. So I feel like we're all at this table together. It's an amazing group of us that work together, and we're all fighting for the same cause. Speaking for the cause, I had to put this picture in for Andy Balon. When Andy and I were there was a very distraught turkey, and it just kind of reminded both of us that perhaps there are other things greater out there than these nematodes, and it may come in the form of this gallinaceous bird. With that, my friends, I wish to say thank you for your time and interest in being here. And with that, I will send it back to you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate that presentation, and definitely appreciate that photo at the end. With that, I will pass it off to Tom. Do you have anything you want to add, or do you want to move on to Michael at this time?
Just a couple quick observations. One is, first, thank you. Second of all, I think it is an opportune time in the presentation or in the evening for me to give a tremendous thank you to the friends of Longwood Mall, who have been partners with the town for literally decades, as we've worked to control and manage as best we can all the various pathogens and pests and challenges that come along with trying to maintain these beautiful, magnificent trees in our urban environment. So I did want to thank them and thank you, Dr. Brantley, quite a bit. And I do think it's a good point to transition, and it's you've set the stage well for Dr. Dosman from the Arnold Arboretum. And Michael, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Tom and Alexander, and thank you so much, Beth, for queuing that up. I was voraciously taking down a bunch of notes, so it's wonderful to be surrounded by experts. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but one of the things I wanted to provide just in a few minutes, and then I think we can have a really hearty discussion among the panelists here, but also the 30 plus individuals who are interested about beaches, beech leaf disease, and particularly those stalwart individuals at Longwood Mall. My perspective as the keeper of the living collections at Harvard's Tree Museum, aka the Arnold Arboretum. We have a 152-year legacy. We were birthed in 1872. 10 years into that, Harvard University donated the land of the city of Boston, and we have that infamous 1,000-year lease. And so if my math is correct, we have 858 years left on our lease, and on these 281 acres. And atop these 281 acres are around 16,000 trees, shrubs, and vines that are from throughout temperate Earth. Many of those regions where Beth was showing the areas of locality or nativity for those nearly a dozen beech species, many of our collections hail from those parts of Earth. And so I've been in this role for some 17 years as the curator of the collection. And one of the things that I've come to embrace and understand is the nature of a dynamic, ever-changing collection. We're not a static collection like the Museum of Fine Arts or the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where nothing changes. Well, I guess the Gardner occasionally, things do change there occasionally, but for the most part, the collections that are there never, ever change. In our case, at a living collection, a living plant collection, whether it's the Arnold Arboretum or Mount Auburn Cemetery or the wonderful Arboretum down in near Charlotte, where that Bartlett Arboretum or Bartlett Tree Research Arboretum, these are constantly changing. They're dynamic. The plants themselves, the works of art are always undergoing changes daily, seasonally, over the decades. And the gallery spaces that house the art are constantly changing. We can't turn the AC on. We can't regulate anything. And so my charge and my predecessors' charges and my successors' charges are always to kind of understand the change and sometimes lean into it and not necessarily be stand pat, because we can't halt certain types of changes, but we can try to mitigate. And one of the things that I spend a lot of my time and my colleagues here at the Arnold is understanding the nature of that change. Certainly, we know sort of an awful lot about the specter of climate change, climate that is changing ever so rapidly, not just with the average annual temperatures that are on the increase, but shifts in seasonality. Who would have thought we would have had the type of temperatures that we've recently and currently been experiencing here in Boston, but also shifts in when our moisture is coming. That's elements of climate. But then there's this other specter that I don't think receives sufficient enough respect, and that's global change, within which climate change sits. And what I mean by that is often it's the things that I think, well, we're to blame with respect to climate change, but also aspects of global change, the introduction and movement of novel pests and pathogen. Every single year there seems to be a new disease, a new insect, something moving from the south to the north, or winter moth that came in from the Maritime Isles and came on down. Every few years there's something new, and that's certainly exacerbated by climate change and other things that we as stewards of Earth are faced with, whether it's in a managed landscape like the Longwood Mall or the Arnold Arboretum or a street situation. And so what we try to do here at the Arnold, and I know the town of Brookline and others, is trying to understand the nature of those changes and then do our best in order to preempt and mitigate. So then let's bring it a little more focus about beaches. The Arnold Arboretum, those on the mall or on the call, maybe some of you are dialing in from the mall. Those on the call might not realize that the Arnold's collection it's one of our nationally accredited collections, our beech collection. It's not only one of the finest in North America, but on Earth. It is the most significant beech collection on Earth. We have presently about 126 plants. That's fewer than what we used to have because we've had to remove many because of a number of issues, not just beech leaf disease. We have some that go back to 1875, just a few years into our being, and a few that are just from 2023. We have 9 different species hailing from about 10 different countries. Many of these are collected in the wild. Some of them are threatened with extinction in nature. We have, in fact, one of our most rare beeches, Fagus longipediolata, one of them that was shown on Beth's slide. One of our most significant beeches was only just recently collected in 2018 in China on one of our expeditions, and it's in a container right now. And we are safeguarding that with everything we can. It's one of the fewest. There are only a couple of these in North America, and so we have these very rare plants, and these have been unfortunately afflicted. Certainly beech leaf disease showed up on our doorstep. It might have been here before we saw it, but 2 years ago is when we first visualized it here at the Arnold Arboretum. But going back in time, we've been dealing with beech bark disease. We've had to deal with the scale and canker. And coupled to that, we've had these environmental extremes, devastating droughts, plural. We've had frigid temperatures. Last winter, this most recent one was the warmest ever on record. The year before that was the coldest we had in 75 years. Everything is challenging these plants, and we have an old collection. Many of these are less resilient than they used to. And we've also had to deal with soil compaction and erosion and poor soil quality. So about a decade ago, what we started to do is take stock on, again, one of our most important collections at the Arboretum, our beech collection, and to think, what is it we can, this is before beech leaf disease showed up, what can we do to try to ameliorate the challenges? What can we do in order to have the healthiest space for the next thing that shows up on our doorstep? And so for the last 5 or 10 years, we've been taking great steps in order to try to improve the soil health. We've taken some steps on landscape improvements to try to restore the understory vegetation. So it wasn't just a mowing operation. It's like naturally occurring, native but not exclusively to Suffolk County. Herbaceous plantings that might improve soil health, trying to shift how we manage and the collection soil so we're not compacting the soil. Which can hasten some of the demise on some of these plants, and so that they actually have better water holding capacity and are just healthier in order to respond to the next problem. And sometimes that certainly helps us to have a healthy collection going into it. But then sometimes, unfortunately, the disease does show up. And when it did, 2 years ago, we started to move into overdrive or hyperdrive and think about what is it that we can do in order to best preserve it. And so many of the treatments that Beth was explaining, in fact, even before some of that science came to bear, we were doing our best to throw practically everything, including the kitchen sink and the dish or the garbage disposal, and maybe even the things that were inside the garbage disposal that hadn't been flushed out, everything at these trees, because again, this is one of the most significant collections on Earth, and trying to take a combined approach. And we've been thrilled to have partners, including those at not as our universities and our ag experiment stations, but also places like Bartlett, in order to give us the best of science the science can provide. We've also thought, though, that we can't save every single tree. We've tried to save certain lineages, so we've backed up. You can think of, we can't necessarily root cuttings on beeches, but we can graft them in order to preserve some of these important legacies before they blink out of existence. Clone them, duplicate them, share them to other gardens in Arboretum in order to preserve that. But the other thing that we've started to think about is, knowing that we have to lean into the change and that things are always going to change, is, what is it about the beech collection that we really value, and trying to identify and preserve those certain values and I might even say symbols of a beech collection that will transcend time for the next 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, even if we can't preserve every single tree in our collection, or every single lineage. What about that space? What about the symbol of a beech collection that we can hold on to? We've also thought an awful lot about how diversity We know that biodiversity is inherently good, and we can also specify the individual reasons why biodiversity is important. We've thought about how do we continue to diversify our beech collection, knowing that susceptibility to beech leaf disease or whatever's going to hit us in another 50 years. We know that not all beeches are created equal, and so thinking further along the lines of diversifying our beech collection, which helps you kind of to hedge your bet. It's like having a diverse stock portfolio, so to speak. And we've also thought an awful lot about, again, we're doing our best and our darndest in order to safeguard the collection by having a very healthy local environment in our beech collection. Preparation is always very important. We've also had to think about how do we be opportunistic and how do we, sometimes take advantage of some certain opportunities that might come down our way, which some we don't even know what they might be just yet. So it's a little bit of both ways of kind of holding on to what you've got, but being open to new things and change, preparing and mitigating by having kind of the best environment as possible, but also thinking that we might have to change things up. And so we can't just have the blinders on and think that we can hold on to kind of our what the beech collections look like for the last 152 different years. So I think with that, that's my perspective. I certainly want to turn it back to Tom and Alexandra, and I know that we've got probably a host of different wonderful questions that are posed by the audience, but also just kind of a conversation about the Longwood Mall's incredible trees.
Michael, I want to thank you for that. I think for folks who are with us tonight, I think the intent for tonight is obviously this is a dynamic situation. It's a fairly new disease for all of us and a new pest, a new vector. It's the first time, as Dr. Brantley mentioned, that we've seen this type of transmission in this specific manner for most of us in our careers. So we're all working as fast as you can. I would note sometimes people will ask me, well, why are you speaking with Bartlett? Well, I happen to be speaking with Dr. Brantley and Andy from Waltham. But you heard from them over and over again, and I went back, and 35 years ago, scarily enough, I came out of school. And 35 years ago, when we were students, they would take us and talk about the Bartlett Research Lab, and they would come and do presentations and share their information. And when I would talk to UMass Edge Extension folks and UNH Extension folks, they would refer back to what Bartlett was doing. And it's this cooperative approach that I think we as a team on our side of the house recognized right away that was going to pay dividends for all of us in the community. And so you may have heard Bartlett, but there's so much behind the research and there's so many connections there, and they've been incredibly responsive. I think it was time flies, so it feels like it was probably a summer ago. So it's probably 2 summers ago when we had a small beech tree, and we reached out to Bartlett and said, have you talked to a bunch of people? Have you heard about any of this? And Andy from Bartlett, Andy Balon, was the first one who said, yeah, I think I've heard some interesting things about the beeches. And it was a small, relatively young beech up in Lars Anderson Park, and Dr. Brantley came up within the week. And back then we were still trying to figure out exactly what was going on. We were all collectively working at it. So it's been a good dialogue. So and we greatly appreciate that. So my intent, as I said, is not to get to a final decision point tonight, or there is no one road. What I really like is the decision tree that Dr. Brantley put up. It takes a 45-minute discussion of everything we consider and brings it down into one slide, which is incredibly accurate. I do want to recognize on the call tonight also as my forestry supervisor, Peter Jutras, who's also a certified arborist and has been with us for 25 years. And we are both huge proponents of reaching out and asking for help and sharing information. We think we come up to a better end when we get there. Alexander, would you prefer for questions to come in via chat or Q&A or hand raised, or I leave it to your request?
Sure. So thank you everyone for the discussion and presentation so far, really informative and helpful. So I think at this point, if you have a question, you can either type it into the Q&A, or if you'd like to raise your hand, you can use the raise hand feature, and we will promote you to get that question shared and answered, hopefully. But I see that we already have one question that was put into the Q&A regarding polyphosphite and whether or not that is something that we've considered as part of treatment options. So I don't know if Dr. Brantley, you want to speak to that, or if you'd like to have others.
I do, yes. So thanks, Alexandra, and thanks to John Swallow for asking the question. Colleagues at Davie, so Davie Tree also has a research lab. So colleagues, again, we're all at the same table together. They did research over a couple of years looking at potassium polyphosphate as a soil application, and saw results with some small diameter beech trees across a series of years in terms of a reduction in beech leaf disease symptoms in the trees that were treated with the potassium polyphosphate. And I want to be quite mindful what that does. The potassium polyphosphate it's awesome. It's a bit like Frank's hot sauce. If you're a hot sauce head, I like spicy food, so I definitely am, and I would prefer to go a little bit hotter. Let's go to Tabasco. But what it does is it actually elicits plant defense responses, and the thought process there with potassium polyphosphates, and we know we've got so many records of this, so much good research in agriculture as well as in landscape plants, that this turns on, triggers, enhances, sustains plant defense strategies. So I am an advocate, John Swallow. I believe that all plants would benefit from potassium polyphosphate in this world of stress that they live in. So I hope that answers the question. It is promoting defense within the plant, but not directly affecting the nematodes.
Thank you. Another question we have here in the Q&A from Megan is, what is the current health status of the trees on Longwood Mall, and how many are appropriate candidates for treatment? So I think, Tom, I don't know if you want to speak to this first, or have Beth, but or Andy, you've all been out there, you've all assessed it. So whoever wants to take the first pass.
I'm happy to speak to it first, and then we can hand her from Andy and Beth. I believe probably on the range of, at this point, greater than 75% of the trees are in pretty good shape out there. And are candidates for treatment that warrant a closer look to see if there are other secondary challenges that they may have. So, but I think 75% or higher are worthy of that decision tree process to see where we go moving forward. Andy, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a pretty good estimation, Tom. And as Dr. Brantley was mentioning, Dr. Borden, a fellow researcher with Bartlett, was actually at the Longwood Mall after actually visiting the Arnold back in, I want to say maybe it was February. And I took a picture of Dr. Borden underneath this ailing beech tree. And then I went out with Dr. Brantley just a few weeks ago, and that tree was gone. With whether it was pest disease or it structurally failed. So I think 75% is a pretty fair analysis, with the same time knowing that there is a plethora of issues throughout the site, just the beech trees in general, and that is an older collection. So Tom and I have been doing our due diligence and paying very much attention to not just trying to save all trees, but setting the expectations on the future of the Longwood Mall. And I really appreciate what Michael said is, what does that space mean to the community? I think you all would be much better in defining that. But as Tom and I have looked at it, I think it's extremely important to maintain what we can with the expectation, knowing that we're not going to maintain the mall in perpetuity with all those trees existing. So maybe a question to the community is, what's next? Bartlett right now is not necessarily recommending replanting of beech trees. So I know in our past discussions, we've talked about diversification and what does it look like, not necessarily in the next 5 years, but what does the mall look like in the next 50 years? And I think really analyzing and agreeing upon what can be saved, what's worth treating is a start, but also I think the future of the mall is really important to think about. What does this look like for Tom's grandkids, for my kids' kids? What is it going to look like? But as of now, I think 75% is a pretty fair estimation.
Great, thank you. So Julia has a question that I think Beth would like to address, which is, what is the toxicity of this new treatment to other species?
Yeah, so thank you, Julia, for asking the question. Fluopyram has been used for decades, both as a fungicide and as a nematicide. And I'd encourage everyone to take a look at these product labels and the SDS sheets to learn more about the problems. I won't say problems, to learn more about toxicity related to specific organisms. And I would also tell you that, especially with the injections, the thiabendazole Arbortect is injected directly into the tree. So there is no like bycatch, if you will, associated with that. This is again, it's a fungicide with nematicidal properties. So that's kind of a plus one. Everything is toxic. Probably the most toxic things are underneath our kitchen sinks, unfortunately. But pesticides these are regulated. Again, they're EPA regulated, and pesticide applicators are qualified to use these products, and they use personal protective equipment. So just some things to think about and be mindful of, that these are not products that you're going to go out and purchase at Home Depot.
Thank you. We have Brenda with us. Brenda, if you would like to unmute and share your question or comment, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I'll try to stay organized. I call the Longwood Mall the Enchanted Forest because it is enchanting and it's just magical. And there was a period of a few weeks where there were turkeys like literally chasing people off. That has stopped. Sadly, I think the newborns aren't alive anymore. And I saw all the mama turkeys the other day sitting on a low branch of the big tree that's got like a hole in the center. There's also some juvenile hawks, and there's a hawk's nest. Anyway, some updates, and robin's nests as well. But in terms of what do the trees mean? I mean, obviously they mean a lot to me. I think of when my ancestors came over, these trees predate that. I think of the root systems, how they're literally holding the earth together underneath Brookline. So I think they're magical. Tom, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at the trees in the fall of 2022, and I tried to, in my desperate attempt to try to save 2 of those trees. Back at that time, you had told me that Bartlett was administering infusions both for BLD and for canker. And I wanted to follow up with that and see, is that still occurring? Because having visited those trees for many decades, it's striking to me how many branches have lost their bark. I've been there when I literally thought a gunshot went off and a whole chunk of the tree had fallen. Luckily, it wasn't there underneath, though. If that's the way it would go, I mean, that would be maybe the best way to go under those trees. But yeah, so I guess my question is, what's the treatment right now for what's going on with them, and how can we do anything to preserve them? I think, from my knowledge, and I could be wrong, there's only 1 or 2 people on the Friends of Longwood Mall. So it was sort of difficult for me I talked to a lot of people in the town, but I didn't feel capable of making inroads, despite like how passionate I was about those older trees that were taken down. So how can I help, or how can I be of use in this situation is another question. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. I will let you know that the polyphosphate treatments that Dr. Brantley referred to, I think we started those about 5 years ago. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, for just the enrichment. And thank you, Brenda. Appreciate your comments. And the treatment for the beech leaf disease itself, we've done 2 rounds, I believe, if memory serves, with pretty good success on there. I've also been there when the trees have split in half, the canker, the beech bark disease, the funguses that you talked about earlier, Dr. Brantley, are all present as they are not only here, but across large beech trees in New England, and they've taken their toll. So as I am oftentimes reminded that trees are just like us. They have a lifetime. They grow, they thrive, they decline, and they pass, and we start anew. So in this case, we're trying to give them the best care and keep them in the best health that we can. So, and I think that leads to another question that I can grab, Alexander, if you're okay with that, and that would be from Anita Johnson, which is what proportion of our beech trees are diseased? And Anita, the answer to that is I've seen the impacts of beech disease across the community. So I would be hard pressed to put a percentage on it because I don't know how many beech trees are on private properties and who is pursuing which options for treatment or if they are. So that is a tough one to answer, but when it does grab hold, as you heard, it does have a significant impact on mortality as well. So.
And Tom, just if you can continue on that same thought of, we have a question from Antonia asking about the status of beech trees in our other parks and the health of them. If you can just speak to kind of the monitoring protocol we have townwide as it relates to beech leaf disease and the any other treatment plans there. And then I think the second question, part of your question, Antonia, about the turkey, that was a joke. There was a slide that Beth had showed at the beginning about a turkey chasing Andy when they were on site. So I think that's
Antonia, good question. Thank you. It was just a joke for us who work for Andy a lot because it's always just fun to see a friend of yours kind of get chased around by a turkey. So, but in fairness, so nothing personal, Andy, but it was always, that one will show up in presentations for a while. I can assure you of that. In terms of the beech trees in our other parks, such as Emerson Park, Olmsted, Lars, we have some up in Dane Park. We have a good sized beech grove up in Steve Blakely Horse Sanctuary. We continue to monitor all of them. One of the great things I would note about working here, for all of you who are on the call who happen to live in town, is it's not always the case, but you should know that your structure here supports continuing education and certifications for those of us who care for these amazing creatures in a very significant manner. So Peter Jutras, who I referenced, myself, Corey, our arborist. In Brookline, we have arborists here working on our trees, not people who are filling potholes on Tuesday and arborists on Tuesdays. So the community has a great deal of passion and care for the trees, as do we. So we continue to monitor and watch all our trees for both beech leaf disease and also for other pests and pathogens of concern. We are regular communicators with folks like Dr. Brantley, Dr. Dosman at the Arboretum. We talked to Dr. Nick Brzee out at UMass. It's something that we are in constant communication. There's a question down below that I just take while I'm here, is that there are some magnificent beeches clearly with BOD in people's yards. Can these be treated? And the answer to that, I believe, is that decision tree slide that you saw Dr. Brantley put up. Is that's where you have certified and qualified personnel of your choosing come in and walk through that decision tree with you. And really each one of those trees is an individual decision, depending on what's going on at a given location. So there was a question from John Swallow about, of all the treatment options, which are root crown liquid treatments like the K-polyphosphate. And Dr. Brantley, you spoke to that a bit, and I don't know if you want to speak to that again.
Sure. Just quickly, the broad form is a foliar application. So those are sprays made directly to the leaves. And the Arbitect is a root flare injection. So injected directly into the trunk, the root flares of the tree. So not a soil drench option at this time.
Thank you. And I would mention that as part of that decision tree that we just referenced, there are other factors that come into play for us as a community and myself as the manager of somewhere in public spaces and public properties. A root drench where you dig a trench and pour it in is an absolute last resort for me because there's too much possibility there of a dog, a kid, something getting into something they shouldn't be in. The root injection is, the stem injection is great because it's a closed system is what we call it, that there's no capability of getting it out. But then it goes back to what is the health of the tree and is it going to uptake the material in the right amount of time to be effective on a pest of concern. So that just like everything we talk about, it's a decision process. There's a question here from Andrew that I think is really spot on for you, Dr. Brantley, because you've spent some time out here, and I certainly have my opinions, but I want to hear what you think. And that is, are the treatments that were presented at the start of the call different from the treatments that were already being done? If they're the same, is there concern about efficacy given the recent progression of BLD on the mall?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what's been done so far have been the broad form foliar applications. And I was so delighted to see the condition of the trees on the mall when I was there with Andy 2 weeks ago. So I feel that the treatments have worked very well to manage the beech leaf disease, the nematode population, but keep in mind that those little worms are still around in so many trees that are not being treated, and we're going to have the pressure there for a while. But that would be the answer to that question.
And thank you for that, Dr. Brantley. If you and possibly, I'm sorry, Andy, did you want to add something to that? I apologize.
Very quickly, I was just going to add that, if you happen to walk by the mall, you will still see signs of beech leaf disease currently after the program that we've had for the last 2 years. But the goal is never eradication. It's to preserve plant health. So on some trees, we had probably upwards of 95% control. On some trees that were stressed with some other ailments, maybe 70% control, maybe even less. But they're viable. So I think the strategy is to suppress the pest, but eradication is never going to happen. Well, unless Mother Nature helps us out. So just expect that if you're along the mall and you see symptoms, it's not that necessarily the program's not working. It's that it's doing all we can, and you're still going to see some symptoms. Thank you.
I think that's an excellent point. I just would note it falls into the category of one of my old college professors used to say, what's clear to you is clear to you. Those of us in the call are so used to this notion of, in the right way, which is integrated pest management, not eradication, or integrated, health problem management. When I came out of school, you were still leaning towards the eradication piece. Now it's maybe in the landscape, it may be there, but we're managing it. And I will tell you that personally, I'm encouraged because in the 2 to 3 seasons that we're going to third season of managing it, as you heard from Dr. Brantley, there's been a significant progression of knowledge on this disease, and we're gaining every year on how to manage it effectively.
Thanks. And Tom, I think a few questions that we've touched upon a little bit, but that I'm just going to kind of package together here regarding what can homeowners do, or what can private property owners do if they're seeing beech leaf disease in other people's yards, and how can that be treated? And I'm wondering, Michael, if you at the Arboretum have any experience of trying to do some education and support for people who are dealing with this in their own tree populations as well.
Over the years, we've certainly offered a number of different courses and open public lectures on kind of just what Tom was talking about, kind of the concepts of integrated pest management and understanding this systems approach. Eradication, Asian longhorn beetle being the only example that I can think of, or it was like across the street from us, and that was successfully eradicated from the Faulkner Hospital. That's something that that's a pipe dream, and so we think about how do we cope with things. More specifically, though, to your question, Alexandra, with questions for the homeowner, and in that we certainly will field them. But generally, we're forwarding them off to our wonderful colleague Nick Brzee at UMass, or our friends at Bartlett, or some of the other companies that are far better versed on it. We certainly have certified arborists on staff at the Arboretum, for climbing arborists and a bunch of horticulturists, all ISA certified. And so we think an awful lot about this. Sometimes, the decisions that we might take, might be a little bit differently than what might occur at the city or town of Brookline, or even a homeowner locally. But we're certainly happy to be part of those conversations.
Thanks. Beth, anything you would add to that for kind of a private homeowner who's looking to address this?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to pass it to Andy.
Bartlett, of course, is a fantastic resource, and you could reach out to the local Bartlett office to get an appointment to inspect your beech tree. But in our community of arborists, there's other reputable companies as well. ISA certified arborists. I work with Tom through the Mass Tree Wardens Association. So if somehow you're not a member of the Brookline community, but the town of Natick, Needham, there's fantastic resources within your community and arborists that can help you out and give an inspection and take a look at the trees you have. So Bartlett's a great resource, but throughout the state, we have a fantastic group of certified arborists that would be happy to help out.
Yep, and I would add to that and just say that in the community of Brookline, one of the neat things about working here as your urban forestry manager is that really the leaders of the industry, folks like Andy and others, are in town quite a bit. So, and I work hard to keep that network open and lines of communication going both ways, because there are clear benefits to the town, but there are a tremendous amount of resources that are available to folks in town to help them with their questions. So I do see a question from Megan Price, and that is, are all 75% of Longwood Mall trees that are candidates for treatment being treated? And I will share with all that when I walked it with Andy a couple years ago, and we were talking about this treatment, there was a notion, I think, for about a millisecond of trying to target treatments only to those few that were looking really great. But we really decided to make sure we were treating all 75%. Or 80%. And in fact, what we said is, to make sure we get proper coverage, let's treat everything out there, please, and make sure we get good coverage. I'm very pleased so far. I was very pleased also. I think it's kind of a scientific principle that was unintended, but when Dr. Brentley came into town a couple weeks ago, Andy didn't call me, so I was looking over her shoulder to see what she was seeing. She did her own independent inspection, and I was very pleased to hear her report out on that. So it aligns very closely with what we're seeing as well. Nothing is ever perfect. Nothing is ever 100%, but we're dealing with a dynamic, living, breathing organism. I think overall we're doing pretty well. So with a tremendous amount of support from the community, from within our structure, and from the industry as a whole. So it's a group effort on this.
Thank you. Lynn Fishman, you're with us and you have a question you wanted to share?
Yes, thank you. But first, what an impressive collection of experts. Thank you for doing this. Dr. Brantley, I saw in one of your slides that you compared the condition of trees before treatment. Some of them had been affected by BLD, and then the post-treatment, which showed improvement. But then I thought that the summary slide was suggesting that the treatment be focused on trees that had not yet been affected. Is that correct? Or help me understand what I got wrong there.
Sure. I think it may have just been wording on the slide, Len, that was a little bit confusing. One of the challenges with beech leaf disease is the leaves emerge in the spring with symptoms. Those symptoms do not change. That damage was already done in the bud, in the primordial, the little tiny leaves in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is the tree is faced with these food factories, these leaves that may be very damaged, and they will do the best they can at photosynthesizing. And the treatment is made the year with all of that damage in the tree, but you can't evaluate the efficacy of the treatment until the following year, Len. The treatment that you make that year won't change anything.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Great. All right. Well, at this time, we have 21 folks in the audience, and one more question just popped up. I'm not sure folks will be able to answer this off the top of their head, but any sense of the treatment costs per tree for a private homeowner looking to tackle beech leaf disease? Andy, I don't know if you would be able to give a ballpark to that, or
yeah, it's so variable. Has to do with the size of the tree, the location of the tree, where it is on the property adjacent to a neighbor's, the means and methods of completing that. So it really is variable. I can tell you that the foliar applications, you would need a total of a four treatment regimented program, while the systemic injection Beth was mentioning was a one-time visit that would, I think the research is still out there, but we're thinking maybe 2 or 3 years of control too. So it does vary. So I would have to see the tree.
Great. So the short answer is reach out to Andy for more info. All right. Well, I once again want to thank everyone for their expertise and participation tonight, and just kind of do a final call for any other questions burning in the audience's mind before we wrap up for this evening.
Just a thank you from our end as the Arborist team. So appreciative of the group effort that we have underway and has been underway on behalf of the trees out at Longwood Mall. It's tremendously beneficial and will pay dividends for the community for generations. So very appreciative. Dr. Brantley, Dr. Dosman, Andy, thank you very much.
And Lynn, I think you get the last bite at the apple with your question.
Will you be sending a follow-up to folks on accessing the recording?
We don't necessarily won't be sending a follow-up necessarily, but we will post it on the town's website.
Okay, great.
So you can access it there.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Of course. Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thank you again to everyone for your participation, and thank you to Dr. Dosman, Dr. Brantley, Andy, and Tom, and Pete for all of your work to take care of our magnificent beech trees and to continue protecting them for years to come. We appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good night, all. Thank you.
Thank you.